it's not just the accountability, it's the systems and people behind that, right? They've built out so many things that I couldn't do on my own. They have a strong recruiting arm. They have, playbooks around sales and go to market. There's just a lot better infrastructure and back office support that we could leverage. There's a stronger peer network that I get to interface with, and we could talk about that more. And then it's from the seller's perspective, like those are things you just can't do on your own without, taking some significant financial risk.
Almost every MSP founder I have spoken with at some point or the other has wondered, what would it be like to exit to an Evergreen? But what happens after the deal closes at Evergreen? Behind Evergreen is Lyra Technologies, its management company, which provides member MSPs with many of the capabilities they need, but often cannot efficiently scale on their own. Joining me today is Greg Zolkos, Regional CEO for Evergreen's MSPs in the South, where he oversees and coaches more than 20 MSPs. Greg and I get into what Lyra actually does for MSPs, the one thing founders should focus on, where MSPs have the most room to improve, the metrics Greg watches across his region, the Evergreen peer group experience, and how AI can help MSPs solve real client problems. And my personal favorite, why your thermostats and garbage collection plans might matter more to your profitability than you think. Listen in. But first, let's get some housekeeping out of the way. My name is Madhur Dugar. I am a senior M&A advisor at Excendio Advisors, focused around MSPs and IT services. And this is my podcast series, M&A Insights. If you are interested in finding out more about how we are helping MSPs exit or grow inorganically, write to me at madhur@excendio.com, connect with me over LinkedIn, or visit our website, www.excendio.com. Let's get started. Help us understand a little bit about your background, Greg. I understand you're a regional CEO at Lyra. So help us understand that, when you exited your MSP, why you chose Evergreen and how you came to your title that you have today.
Yeah, so I had run my MSP in Tampa. It's Atlas Professional Services for a little more than 16 years before joining Evergreen. Didn't take the decision lightly. There's a lot of M&A activity for 5 years, probably maybe 7. And it's getting hit up all the time. And I started looking at it and hadn't really ever considered selling. Didn't build a business with the idea of selling. But as the opportunities kept coming up, I looked at different opportunities between coming a platform, doing your traditional roll-up, or this new model I heard of. And there's a local investment banker group here in Tampa that I talked to, and Evergreen's name kept coming up. The more I explored the model, the more I liked it. I wasn't ready. I just made a lot of management and investments into the business, and asked Evergreen to give me a little bit of time and come back and talk to me. They did. It was a very compelling offer. When I went through the diligence process, asked a lot of questions, I ended up ultimately choosing the model because of the opportunity to keep the relationships as close to the customer as possible. That was super important to me. Mm-hmm. And what that meant in the decentralized model was I still had the autonomy to make the decisions I wanted. And you think about, each model has their benefits. And for me, this was the ultimate choice. I didn't have to rehire my employees and give them a new W-2, change their benefits, change the name on all of our, agreements, and introduce our customers to a new, help desk team out of a different state or country for that matter. They still had the same experience they had before. And so to them, it was the least disruptive opportunity. And for me, what it ended up ultimately having was a little bit of accountability, which was the push I needed to get me out of, being a sole founder with nobody holding me accountable. I achieved a lot of great things, but I felt like we could do better with the right partnership. And 2 big things changed. I got a little bit of accountability, which turned out to be a great thing. It lit a fire in me. I was stuck around that 10 million mark, doing it by myself. And that kind of got me to push to accelerate some growth. And then the only other big change is on the accounting side because we like to have consolidated financials now that, there's an investment group. So the good news is, the techs got to maintain all the tools they used. They didn't have to learn a new tooling system, deploy something, disrupt a customer environment. So that creates in my mind, a lot of chaos with the client experience and then your team. And I'm actually in that office today. I came here because we're doing some AI discussions, and it's great to see everybody still have the same team, as before. A couple people have left, but that's just normal as they accelerate their careers or look for a change. So for me, it was the least disruptive option out of all.
Right. Least disruptive, and then the additional benefit of a little more accountability, which is healthy.
Yeah, and it's not just the accountability; it's the systems and people behind that, right? They've built out so many things that I couldn't do on my own. They have a strong recruiting arm. They have playbooks around sales and go to market. There's just a lot better infrastructure and back office support that we could leverage. There's a stronger peer network that I get to interface with, and we can talk about that more. And then it from the seller's perspective, like those are things you just can't do on your own without taking some significant financial risk.
For an MSP owner who's part of Lyra, you mentioned taking away from them things that are difficult to scale that Lyra could do better for them. What would you rather want them to focus on?
The most important part of this entire organization is going to be the relationship. So I think they need to focus on the relationships within their company and within their community. And their community to me is the broader community, of course, and then their customers, right?
Yeah.
And I think that piece of it, when you have the retention piece solved and you have great relationships, you're going to make mistakes. We all make mistakes.
Right.
It's how you react to those, the relationships you maintain. It just makes it more sticky, and it's easier to accelerate your growth when you're not having a leaky bucket, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's really important to me because organic growth is really important. Retention is really important.
Yeah.
And that becomes scalable. You're not constantly replacing revenue. The team's happier, the results are higher, right? Those things all go hand in hand. And that's how I had my job down to what I had it down to, right? I chose, who I met with, when I met with them, the events that were important to go to. And that's the other thing. Don't go to everything. Find the events that add value. And don't try to talk to everybody. Pick a few people you want to talk to, or know that, you have a client or a friend that's connected to somebody who's going to be at the event and use that to help drive those conversations. I think a lot of people go out and expect instant results from those conversations, and it takes time to build that relationship.
I totally agree.
This is a trust-based business. We have access to everything. So
from a metric standpoint, when you're looking across these MSPs or maybe on an aggregated basis, what metrics do you focus on or you find most interesting?
I try to look at organic growth, profitability, and client retention, right? There's a million metrics that can fall under that'll give me data.
Sure.
Those are super important. I like to tell them all like a certain revenue per employee is very important to maintain.
Yeah.
And then again, from there, that's going to tell me all kinds of service metrics, whether they're pricing it right, they have too high a cost, and you can drill down. But the three big ones are going to be organic growth, profitability.
There was one low-hanging fruit, or you think is low-hanging fruit for an MSP owner to try and improve with their business. What do you think it is?
I mean, a lot of people are going to lead with, service delivery and efficiencies around that, which is super important because that's where most of your costs lay.
Yeah.
But what I like to do is control the controllables. So if there's just one thing, is be really focused on your cost structure in general. And that's everything. That's from one of my best examples, I guess, and it's a funny story, is we had an operator who took over for a CEO, and I was looking through his expenses, and I try to do an SG&A analysis, a couple times a year on the businesses to help him and guide him and coach him. And he had a waste management bill of almost $3,000 a month. And so what that was the trash collection. I just the way my brain works is, I'm going to act like a 2-year-old. I'm like, why? Right. And so the why for me was like, hey, why are you spending $3,000 a month? His answer, that's the trash bill. Okay. Why is it so high? He's like, I don't know, man. I was like, well, how often do they pick it up? right?
Right.
5 days a week. And it's a big dumpster. It's a big dumpster in the back of the building for the cardboard and the server box, all that stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So the next question is, how often is it full?
Right.
And his answer was like, ooh, maybe 1 or 2 days. I said, why don't you call him? Change the trash schedule to 2 days a week. That resulted in a $20,000 a year savings.
Right.
So those are the things I think that people forget about. And as an operator, like I would look at things and say, hey, do I need that anymore? Is it serving a purpose for my business? And right down to, and I don't want to deliberate this too much, but even like your air conditioning, your electric bill, right? You see a high electric bill, pretty much know what the range is now based upon like the square footage of the building and know what the range is because we have so many buildings. So this is where the data really helps. And we can look at this across the entire portfolio and say, hey, you have 10,000 square feet. Most companies in your range have a $700, $800 a month bill. Yours is $1,500. So then my next question is, do you have a programmable thermostat?
Right.
And if they say yes, could you start using it? So if it's not included in the rent, right, and it's an additional line item, then there's questions to be asked. So I think cost structure is super important. It's one of the reasons why we're probably one of the most profitable regions within Lyra, hyper focused on it, and it's not in a micromanaging way. It's really to give guidance and help them understand. Like if we can control these things, when something bad happens in the business, it's easier to absorb that pain if you control that, right?
I didn't realize that you guys supported MSP founders with the sales and marketing efforts. Can you go a little bit more detail on that? How do you help them with that?
Yeah, we have a whole team called Lyra Launch. Of course, we got a fun name for it. And they're actually in my MSP right now doing the AI training for account management and the solution architects. So what they'll do is they'll talk about how to have those conversations with your customer, how you should be helping them. And I think we dive into this a little bit later, but a lot of it is, looking at their processes and things, and internally within the MSP and saying, okay, here's what a really great account management cadence looks like. And then we have MSPs in buckets from level 1 to level 4, let's call it. And if you're at level 1, I can't expect you to do a really great account management, QBR, TBR, whatever you want to call it. But I could say, hey, here's the basics you should focus on to add value to your client. Because they do want to talk to you. They do want to know where their gaps are on compliance or security or whatever it might be for their industry. So the better you can start, or the earlier you can start having those conversations, the better off you are. So we'll build playbooks to move them. Like, okay, you're level 1, let's get you level 2, let's get you level 3. Same thing with sales and go to market. We try to ingest what we call a growth leader, and that's different in every business depending on its size, whether it's a true CRO, a VP of sales, or whatever that might look like based upon that company's need. And then we arm them with, the information and tactics to succeed. So we have weekly webinars. We host them all in Chicago a couple times a year and bring them together because, it's the profit from another land is a real thing. So as we're telling them these things and showing them where they can find success, that's great. When they hear it from their peer who's crushing it, out west or something, they're like, oh, wow, I gotta do what that guy is doing or that girl's doing it. Yeah. That's amazing stuff.
You mentioned the peer group within Lyra. I find that fascinating, partly because potentially there's a peer group where there are folks from the same region or same location.
Yeah.
Right? Which is something other peer groups work hard to avoid.
Yeah.
So how do you set your peer groups up?
Yeah. So, listen, I think, family is probably, people say family is a weird word. We're all one big family. We're all part of the same portfolio. So the goal here is to make everybody better and share best practices and highlight bright spots. Yeah. And if you have somebody local to you that's doing something really well, I think you can leverage that within a certain set of boundaries, right? So I always say, just practice rules of engagement, good faith. Don't take what you're learning and go right to their customer.
Right.
That is probably when you'll get a call from me, right? Right. So, and we do have that. We have people like, hey man, this is my secret sauce.
Right.
And And I try to encourage them like, hey, if you can share a piece of that secret sauce to make them better,
Yeah.
and know that they're going to respect you and do it in a non-competitive way, like
Yeah.
we all grow. So the beautiful thing about this is we're over 120 MSPs now. We
Hmm.
have an opportunity to fire so many test bullets and see so many different unique things.
Yes, that's
doing.
true.
And what I try to do when we acquire a new company is I'll introduce them to the region and I'll talk about what I believe their superpower is. Like, here's the things they're doing differently than other people if you want to learn.
Yeah.
So that starts off like the engagement day one with, we're going to collaborate. And I want you to be open to collaboration. You know, if we buy a company and it's within an area, so I'll give you another example, I guess. We bought a company that's within the area of about 6 different MSPs within 2 hours. And they do infrastructure, which we don't have anybody in those areas to do infrastructure. And that's not common for
Yeah.
us to buy one that
Yeah.
has a lot of infrastructure services.
Yeah.
They do access control, surveillance, you name it. So I introduce them to all those MSPs, say, I know you're farming this out now. If there's an opportunity to keep it within the family and it better serves your clients, go ahead. But it's still your decision, right? If your local partner is sending you a bunch of referrals, probably not the best idea to farm out the cabling.
Right.
But if not, we have this ability and this person is really good at it, you should leverage that.
Yeah.
Or this company is really good at advisory services for community banks and financial institutions. And if you have a need, you can reach out to them and partner with them on that. So
Yeah.
the collaboration, it's huge. It's a big differentiator. The peer groups, I think, they should be vulnerable. I think you don't grow unless you are willing to be vulnerable, show your weaknesses. We put together a scorecard that goes over like key data within their groups, right down to endpoints per employee, like just important metrics within the industry, gross margin, so they can see their neighbor has a 60% gross margin, they have a 40. What am I doing wrong? How can I be like you? Or can you share what you're doing to get there?
Yeah.
And it's really important, I think, to this whole piece being successful.
Yeah.
Because, when I was a founder, my peer group were my clients. And I would go to them and say, hey, I have this challenge. I've seen this challenge within your business. How did you handle it behind the scenes?
Are the peer groups set up does each region has its peer group, or is there like a national peer group, or how does that work?
So the ones we have are more for functional units within the business in this region.
Okay.
And then our other peer groups are more national, have a quarterly meeting cadence, just like an Evolve or something else.
Yeah.
And it's facilitated by a third party.
Okay. What are you seeing right now in the MSP market that excites you?
It's
Right.
going to be AI. Yeah, it's going to be the IAPs. Because I guess when I founded my business, I was truly a consultant, right? I didn't have a help desk. I didn't have, a whole team. And yeah, I kind of went through the process of sitting down with an owner, understanding their business, where can I add value? And I would try to map out a plan of, okay, you have these costs in your business, and they're higher than the cost for me to support your environment. I can help you remove those costs and pay for me. But we have an opportunity to step back and sit down with the client, understand their processes, find their inefficiencies, and help them solve it with technology in a way we've never been able to do.
Okay.
And that to me adds so much value and makes you so much more sticky than just a regular MSP doing help desk and security.
When you do this, is it that you're using AI to look at the data in more rich data and come up with better conclusions, or do you have specific tools that you're actually putting into the client's environment to get the better decisions?
I mean, some clients just want a chatbot, and that's to them, that's the solve they were looking for.
Okay.
You could take an engineering firm, for example, that does a lot of estimating.
Yeah.
They've got their CAD document. Their CAD document tells them how many sticks of rebar they need to build whatever they're doing. And a human would go through and count that and do that. And it was a 4 or 6 hour, whatever that process was, right?
Sure.
So you can use AI to do that estimating now in a matter of minutes.
Agreed.
So they don't need to hire a ton of estimators. If they have the team there already, they can leverage them to do other things that are more important for their business. So that's an example. There's some accounts payable, accounts receivable. There's all kinds of different things we can do within their business to add value. But It's more of really understanding things they're doing and building a tool around that.
Yeah.
And it's a really cool accounting finance dashboard that you vibe code to help them with their closing procedures and journal entries and some of the gap accounting requirements they may have. Like that moves the needle for businesses. They can
Yeah.
make decisions with real accurate data. It's more often recently we've had founders come to us say, hey, I've gone through the cloud era.
Yeah.
I've gone through the security era.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have this in me, man.
Yeah.
And again, with those 120
Agreed.
test bullets, we have so many investments going on in Lyra right now at the operational company level, close to the relationship with that client as possible.
Yeah.
That's how you win. So we're taking those lessons, and then we have to, what we're still learning and getting better at, I say, is everything is going to be a constant improvement here, is how do we share those better with the broader community within Lyra? So we're
Yeah.
building an internal system that's almost like a marketplace where they can go grab those items, say, oh, this guy built out this closing procedure. So we have advanced closing requirements, right? It's just the nature of what we do.
Mhm.
We're, in one instance, we've shaved down that 6 closing day request to 2. Now, the guy that did all that, I'm now going to pay him to go to another operating company and do a proof of concept there. And if we
Okay.
get this right, that's a revenue opportunity for him, and it's a
Yeah.
huge efficiency gain for that. And then we've made another bet too, where we're taking and we're putting a technical implementation person into a business and a process person, so they can build out a team and processes, and then we come back with a playbook and say, okay, let's hand this to somebody else and do it again. And it goes back to what I said earlier about being out in the field. And think of like a PwC consultant. We call it a forward deployed engineer is the
Okay.
new lingo everybody's using. But like a real process person that's going to sit down and spend time. And they'll probably be somewhat technical, but not technical enough to go back to that customer and say, hey, here's what I'm going to build to solve that pain you have or that
Okay.
inefficiency you have, or allow you to expand this piece of your service offering without adding tons of human capital behind it.
Where do you think MSP operators have the most room for improvement?
Well, I still think on pricing, I think they need to standardize their service delivery. Oftentimes they have 5 different tools for backup, or 3 tools for security, and I think the more you can standardize that, operational discipline is huge. Be really good about your processes. Um, have those defined. I'm a big believer in data, and I think I mentioned to you this at one point in time. I gave a T-shirt to my entire region, so that wasn't very data driven of you. So data hygiene is super important, and I think
Yeah.
a lot of MSPs undervalue that. So I like to see that get cleaned up, because as we start leveraging AI more, well, if you don't have good documentation or good ticket resolution outcome notes or whatever, the AI is not going to help and make great decisions. It's going to just take it that much longer to learn. So the better that hygiene is, I think the better overall the company.
Yeah.
And we want them to run the company like a real business, not just a tech support operations.
Yeah.
That's a different way of thinking sometimes too.
How do you think the next generation of successful MSPs be different from the ones that we are seeing today?
I think they're going to be more standardized.
Okay.
They're going to have a lot more automated.
Yeah.
Very security focused from day one. So
Yeah.
the things that we had to build out, that should be their foundation, right? You're going to start, and I try to do this throughout my career, and you don't always have an opportunity because so many things happen so fast in this space, and they're happening faster than ever.
Yeah.
But I like to start with the end in mind. So if I know like I want to become an MSP today, I'm like, okay, I need to start with a security foundation. I need to start with, automation, whether that's AI, whether
Right.
it's PA, whether it's workflows, whatever that is, and standardize the tool set. So you can do more of the resources you have. And again, allow them to spend as much time as possible with the clients. We used to grow by adding people.
Yes.
And I think in most cases we have an opportunity here to leverage the people we have and continue the growth and give them an opportunity to accelerate their careers.
Yeah.
And what was hard for me earlier on in my career was learning that Some level two techs just want to be a level two tech.
That's true. Yeah.
They don't want to accelerate their career. So when you have those people, still identify them. They're still a valuable part of the
Mhm.
team.
Mhm.
But what I wanted for them was different what they wanted. Um, so I think giving them tools to make them more efficient and remove some of the burden from their day so that level two tech can possibly stay longer and you have better retention. The way I used to handle retention was through, culture and events and activities and, trying to give them great work-life balance. Well, if you can enhance, their day-to-day workload, you have an opportunity to work on all those things.
Yeah.
And the retention should be better. And I mean, the goal too is how do you balance that and not make the job boring? So
I really appreciate your time. I've kept you on my podcast now for over an hour. So, and this was literally when I was going question.
Yeah.
There was no time for idle thought. So,
No, this is I mean, listen, we could probably talk for days.
yeah.
There's a lot to talk about here. It's exciting. I took the role because I was sitting there trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my career and, considering myself probably the easiest way to summarize it now as an MSP coach and educator, like
Mhm.
this is fun to me. It's really enjoyable and it's fun to see the outcomes. The outcomes are where it really comes back to and it makes you
Mhm.
smile. Or it's a thank you from a seller who didn't think he was going to hit his earnout without our involvement.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He wasn't going to get a second check. So I mean, I still have I have a voicemail saved to somebody who was
Oh.
getting short, and we did some things on our end to ensure that happened. Um, and for him to follow up with a voicemail to say, "I know that this was a result of your efforts,"
Oh,
um,
that's wonderful.
was amazing. And that to me, like that keeps me going.
That's really
It's
cool.
pretty
That is
neat.
satisfying. Yeah. Greg, thanks so much. Appreciate your time.
Absolutely. All right. Have a good day.
Thanks.